All right, let me say hello and welcome to all of my good friends out there. Hell, who am I to judge? Welcome even if you're not my friend, because whoever you are and whoever's watching this, I want to say thank you for gracing me with your presence. Welcome to Stock Market Mutterings. This is for the week of July 15th, where I will do my best to take a grope in the murkiness and try to find you some quality trade setups and make some sense out of this market. But before I get started, please do remember that I have just gone through the website and completely updated all of the educational content. So I now have the live trade room. I now have the live trade feed. I now have over 100 hours of free educational stock market trading materials and hundreds of hours of paid stock market materials. So no matter what level your trading is at right now or what kind of education you're trying to extract from the market, I'm going to post a link to the website. I'm sure you will find it there. Visit thelinkanlist.com, browse around the courses, and see if there's something there that has your interest or something you feel can get you to that next level. So let's begin. Let's talk about the market. This was the week for the Fed testimony, and old pal Jerome got up there, did his babbling, whetted the appetite of the market just enough to just dangle the carrot of that rate increase that this market is so desperately praying for to keep this slumping, horrific, dying economy afloat. What they're ever begging for. He got up there, did enough, said enough, got them all in the right direction, started on Wednesday, and from that moment, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, this is an onslaught of buying. It's like every little tiny downtick was just scooped up. Now I'm talking about the markets. We actually saw something a little interesting that we may want to pay attention to, which I'll get to in just a second. But if you're watching the markets, which you may not be, it doesn't always matter when it comes to trading your stocks, but if you're trading futures like I often do sometimes, you pay attention to the market because you're trading it as an instrument. But individual stocks will often move individually from the market. You will have these days where things are ultra bullish and they're all going in one direction, or they're ultra bearish and it's going in one direction. But for the most part, stocks will move kind of independent of the market. But if you're paying attention to it for overall reasons, we do talk about it for those of us out there that trade futures as well. So from that moment, it was just buy, 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 and more buying. In fact, the market had to close on Friday to get people to stop buying. And the one that really benefited that, of course, was the Dow. It had the nicest looking chart here, broke the highs, and from that moment, you just, from this 27,000 area that it cleared through, where they had the old 27,000, it was straight up 300 points. I mean, virtually nonstop. I mean, look at the action here on Friday. I mean, there's just almost no pullbacks whatsoever, and if they are, they're very minuscule. As far as commenting on this, it's very difficult. I mean, you've got all the things lining up for there. I don't know if this is going to end up being a sell the news event. I don't think you see anything sustainable to the downside until the Fed actually speaks, which is at the end of the month. So you've got some earnings coming up on some companies this week that might provide us with a little entertainment. Let's go with that. But until you start protruding the 20 moving average on the daily chart in any of these instruments, whether you're looking at the Qs, whether you're looking at the Dow, whether you're looking at the minis, the E-mini, the SPYs, until you get underneath of that with volume, I wouldn't think you're going to see anything sustainable to the downside, but only time will tell. I don't like to predict. I like to just be prepared. So just kind of watch that. As far as this, I don't know how long it's going to be before they start printing the Dow 30,000 hats. Who knows? We might see that through the summer. But let's talk about some individual names. One of the things I wanted to bring up that was interesting about this is when you have a rally like this, you often see a ton of stock names making all-time highs on a ton of volume. You didn't have that here in this case. You had the markets going up, but there are a lot of stocks that just simply are not at highs, like this Boeing, obviously, TTD, Win. I'm just going down through my list, clicking on things. BABA, Grub, well, Hasbro's up there. Apple, Nvidia, Cree. These stocks I'm looking at. Restoration Hardware. You know, what I'm saying is, yes, there are a few stocks that made some all-time highs. But there's a lot that did not. And you would think for such a powerful move coming from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that you would see more stocks plugging away at all-time high. Now, what does that mean? Well, that's a good question. What does that actually mean? Now, if these stocks start taking off, what does that mean for the market? Does that mean it just goes even higher? We're gonna find out. Just something there that's a little offbeat, off pace of the normal that you don't always see all the time. Maybe it's something that we should be paying attention to, but we shall find out. So I want to talk about a couple of stocks because there does seem to be some nice setups. You know, oftentimes there's still some good value left out there, even though the market's screeching. Excuse me. The one I want to talk about here is LULU. Now, what they did this week was a shelf. And a lot of times when a company does an offering, it can be translated as a negative or a positive. In this case, it was obviously as a positive. At first, it kind of broke down. The stock broke down just a tiny bit. But then it just shrugged that off and off and running it went. The move was really, really big here on Friday. It looks to me, when we've been talking about this now for months, that when you see a chart like this, when it has a range break, I'll see if I can back this up over here so you can take a look at it. This is what I'm talking about. You get a nice little grind up, holding the moving average, and as soon as it has a little piece of consolidation there, as soon as it breaks that range, these things almost beeline right into their previous highs. So when they kind of fade back here, they'll just jam up right into their all-time highs. Maybe it's not necessarily all-time highs in every stock, but TWLO is a good example of that. Did that a couple of days ago where, you know, it held this range for a while. As soon as it broke that range, it just took off like a bat out of hell, right up towards the highs. You could say the same for SQ. Kind of had a move like that over the last few days where you were trading sideways here for the longest time, and as soon as you break that, it's just off and running and right up to the recent highs. I mean, just it's like, so what I'm saying is when this event happens and you have something that's clustered down on the bottom, as soon as they bust through those ranges, they just go. It's like non-stop. It's almost like it just goes straight into the high. Now, some of them will actually make new highs. Sometimes they get rejected up there like TWLO. But let's go back and talk here at LULU. I think you're going to see this move going through 190.50, and you're probably going to get a big vert break on a stock like this. Problem, though, that I see with it is you would like for it to be consolidated up in this area because it's just sitting at resistance. And range-wise, it went up $6.45. That's a lot for this stock. You don't have a whole lot of 650 days, 650 up, 650 down days in something like this. So that's a real big move for this stock, and it's sitting at a very, very critical technical level. So what I'm saying is, in the perfect world, if you're given the perfect scenario, is that it taps and dances around that on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, and then maybe Thursday it decides to light it up through there, because I think in that case you would see a really strong move. On the flip side, what you don't want to see in scenarios like this, which is you see often, which kind of pisses you off, and that's is gap up over it. Because once you gap up over it, to me, it just blows the trade. You've just chewed up the value that you were looking for because you're trying to capture $4 or $5 worth of premium on this, and then you're going to gap up and take 273 or 3 or some garbage like that. So I kind of hope that doesn't happen in that scenario. Actually, what happens is we either open up flat, maybe drift red for a couple days, 2 days or whatever, and then kind of bust it. But I do want to pay very close attention because I think if it clears this level, that you've got something there that's in this type of a market is going to make a move. I mean, the last time that did it, when it broke through the high, it went from 181.90s to 188.40s nonstop. So, you know, it is what it is, and you have to watch this thing. Again, the only thing I would caution here, the thing that I didn't care, I shouldn't say caution, the thing I didn't care about was the fact it's up $6.45. I wish it would have took its time just a little bit more, but so be it. Now, another one here is TTD. TTD. I like this one because I think you have what you saw in TWLO previously, what you saw with SQ, and a couple of those other names. And you still have range. You're still off of the highs here. You have a nice little double top if you look back here at 256.55. So I think that's what you're going to see, providing things stay the same, meaning you don't have like these mega bear events or something like that. You're probably going to see this thing wiggle its way up there. Now, it trades a little bit different. You can see some of the intraday trading on this stuff is nutty. I mean, just look at Friday. This is monster range, going from 243 down to 237. And then ended up going up to 245. So, I mean, everything you ever needed as a trader is wrapped up right here inside of this type of move. But you have a high here from the 10th of July, which is 247.55. So watch 247.55. If you get a strong move through there on volume, you get a close that's above there. I see no reason why this thing doesn't blast right to 255 and then maybe a little bit higher. That's just been kind of the way stocks have been working in this market, and something that we should be paying attention to there with TTD. Also, something to take a look at here will be ADBE. This thing's just messing around here. And this is what I'm talking about, like I would like to see from LULU, is a couple of days where you've had attempted selling. So if you're looking at a chart like this, you get up towards high, you get some rejection, it shrugs that off, makes another high. Then it fades out into the day, sells off the next day, shrugs that off, ends up going higher. So every opportunity right now for when this thing has made a down move and shorts pile on, or however you want to look at it, that's its opportunity to sell off. And then it just shrugs that off and it flips around and it starts making another high and starts working its way back up. So you have that now for 3 straight days. If you get that one power move going through 310, which is very, very close, you're only 50 cents out on this, I would expect a pretty big move as well, just like you might very well see out of LULU there. So LULU, TTD, and ADBE. And another one here that has a pretty interesting chart is RH. You know, this RH looks SQ-like, where you've been sitting here for a long, long time. I mean, this thing has been floating around these upper areas of 123, which is resistance. It's been doing that since the 13th of June. So you've been tapping on that area for a month now. And if this thing clears it, actually, let me just erase what I just said, because you can actually go back here. I wasn't looking at this just here a second. It's back in April. You had this double top back here. So you're talking about an awful lot of resistance, and if it cleans this, you've got this gap. I think it would be quick work at the gap, which is 130. I think this thing can just go straight to 130 there. So this restoration hardware looks pretty good. And then maybe picking up a little bit of this TWLO. It's been a pretty strong stock. I just talked about it there, how it broke out. But when it went up towards that, well, it broke the range. I shouldn't say it broke out. But when it broke the range, it went up to the highs. Now that it's pulled back here, he kind of faded in a little bit. It's into the moving averages. Maybe if it gets down here, that's a good bounce zone for it. So let's begin the week with this. Let's talk a little bit about, I'd love to see a pullback, man. I mean, at these prices, you'd feel better if we'd pull in. I think it would open us the opportunity to get a little more aggressive and have a little bit more value in there. At these levels, we're one bad tweet away from, being in an uncomfortable position. I'd like to see that, but that doesn't mean, what I like to see and what I get are normally two different things. I still think there are some value names. I'm looking for things that still have some room to run if they do decide to break, regardless of what the market does. And I think you can find that in TTD, ADBE, and RH. I think those are really good. LULU here, it might do it, even though I don't feel so good about it. It still might do it, but like I said, today being up 650, boy, I'd sure like to see it chill. But like I said, you don't always get what you want. You have to trade what's in front of you and do the best you can at being patient, waiting for the right kind of setup, and then go from there. And there could be tons of other names that appear and disappear and all that stuff throughout the week. So anyway, if you guys need help with your trading, make sure to visit thelincolnlist.com. I'll end it on that note. It was a good week of trading. I hope it went well for you. Always feel free to reach out to me with your questions and concerns, tips, or whatever you got on your mind. Until next week, my good friends, or my not so good friends, you're all my friends if you're watching this. Take care. I'll talk to you later.